Power Surge is completely broken in Once Human and simply amazing. That's the same Power Surge damage as we get here, critted, there, critted, and then there. No damage drop off. No matter the distance, even if I walk all the way around and try to somehow trigger my Power Surge, it's still going to be the same damage and even more because I'm stacking crit. Now, how do we abuse this though to make the absolute ultimate endgame power build? And that's where our good friend, the AC12 Corrosion comes in. And a very funny thing about this build, it equally nice works with the Soccer Outsider. So you get a 2-in-1 skateboard. Now, how does the corrosion work? And I'll let you in on a little secret on how to reduce the spread of your shotguns to hit more shots for more Power Surge. 70% chance to trigger Power Surge with a hit, but will not inflict Power Surge status. That one is probably the most important thing of the whole gun. Then Power Surge can deal crit hit. Cool. And crit rate is plus 15%. And when Power Surge is triggered, Power Surge crit damage is plus 15% for 6 seconds and the effect can stack. What? Yeah, 150% bonus Power Surge crit damage. And then Power Surge damage factor is plus 15%. That's just flat. Now, how does Power Surge work? Status damage, shock element, and psi intensity are the keywords for the damage of it. And it can crit, so crit damage as well. The interesting part is the actual Power Surge status of accuracy minus 40% does not get applied, which allows us to use a crazy mod. And that would be on our mask, the first electrocution for enemies without Power Surge status, Power Surge ultimate damage plus 30%. And since we can't essentially apply the Power Surge status, we permanently get this bonus running. And if you look at the substats on the mod, Power Surge damage, fantastic, and then shock damage as well. Both working nicely to increase this. Could also be violent for the 15% bonus crit damage. Now, the most important part in this build is to get your crit rate up, since the gun itself can crit and the Power Surge can crit, and we wanted to do as much crit damage as possible. My crit rate in this case is only 15%, and yet we're managing to get Power Surge damages up to 12, 13, 14,000 crit damage, and that's not even with super maxed out perfect gear. And the first step for more crit will always be the weapon calibration. We're using the rapid shot style for the bonus fire rate, that is mandatory, and the draw speed to whoop the gun out faster as you're swapping from your weak spot damage gun over to your corrosion to then just do more damage. Now, I don't have the crit rate here. I just have elemental damage. It does work though, right? It gives you bonus shock damage. It's good, but I'm missing out on 12 to 15% more crit rate, and that hurts a lot. There is a way to make up for this though, and that would be the gas mask hood, the helmet. After triggering Power Surge, crit rate plus 35%. And that's overall crit rate, not just for Power Surge. You get a 70% chance to trigger it with the weapon itself. So this is bound to nothing. You just have to hit. And then we're getting another 35% crit rate, boosting us vastly higher. Plus the 15% Power Surge crit rate itself on the gun. We're suddenly sitting at 65% with the gas mask hood. Still, missing up to 15% more from the calibration does hurt, so definitely look out to get a crit rate calibration, especially if you don't have the gas mask hood. And to get even more crit rate out, we put the Lone Wolf set on. That's another 5% plus the huge amount of crit damage you're getting stacking up for every crit you do. And the funny part is it says for every 2 weapon crits, we get Lone Shadow stacks. Well, we're playing a shotgun, so that's already 2 weapon crits. And that's 1 weapon crit, and that's 2 weapon crits. And then, you know, that's 3, 4, 5. So you're getting a vast amount of weapon crits just like that by actually shooting, right? Because we're not just getting 1. We shoot multiple pellets, we get multiple weapon crits. The Lone Wolf just stacks itself up like there's no tomorrow. And then our last item piece is currently the Bastille Pants, as this hires our weapon damage, and then the weapon damage translates into more Power Surge damage end of the day. The main mod you're going to be using on the weapon is called Static Shock. Power Surge status duration minus 50%. We don't do the Power Surge status, and then Power Surge damage plus 20%. Simple as cake. And I for myself have another 8% shock damage on this one. Again, violent is an option for the 15% crit damage. On the helmet, we're reducing our range because range doesn't matter. I just showed you. You're doing the same damage with a Power Surge no matter what. Then bonus fire rate and bonus status damage. This one is also crit damage and weapon damage on top. Super amazing. The gloves are running the most important one, the crit amplifier. That is another 10% crit rate with the crit damage and the crit damage. There's no question. If you can get magazine capacity as a substat, that is very important. More bullets in the gun is just good. We're currently sitting at 22. Can go up to 24, 25, 26, just with a little bit more magazine capacity. Then on our boots, it's covered advance for taking no damage within 4 seconds, gives us weapon damage and status damage. Those are two things that we're essentially boosting. Now, I do have a weak spot damage on this one. Yeah, that stinks. I would rather have elemental damage or crit damage. And on our Bastille pens, one of the most important ones, and that would be Deadshot. Each crit hit grants more crit damage. That is plus 45%. Then our Lone Wolf set can give us 10 stacks of 6% more damage, another 60%, so 105% more. And this one as well stacks up to 150%. So 255% more critical strike damage just with all these pieces. Lastly, on the chest, I currently play the Flame Resonance. That would be status damage and crit damage plus, as it is violent. Alternative to this, you could just use any mod with good substats. This one is another 5% weapon damage and 2.4% status damage. That's almost the same as what we're essentially getting with the 12% status damage and the 9% crit damage. Have one with very good substats, take that over whatever you have to offer down here with Flame Resonance, as you're getting 2 more substats on top. Cradle buffs are simply amazing for a shotgun. You can get the 20% more damage plus the ammo reload as you're killing someone. Then the bonus damage with the deviation out. We're getting 25% more damage after reloading. And if you hit a weak spot, that's another status damage plus 25%. Just like that. With this on, we're simply weak spot and suddenly our power surge is just already increased. Then after reloading, our power surge gets another 25% plus. So we reload, we get 25% and 25% just like this. And if you're defeating an enemy, power surge damage and shock elemental damage, so double treble, is increased for 15 seconds. I hate this one as you need to defeat someone for it, but even during a boss fight, if you just blast an ad away, you're suddenly doing more damage to the boss. Doesn't hurt. Then if you're playing solo, use Lone Walker. If you're playing in teams, use side by side. And if you want to, steady hand, which gives you more weak spot damage. Now, power surge can't do weak spot damage, but your shotgun does weak spot damage, and you can mark people extremely easy with your second gun as you're just going for boop, 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 boop to mark someone. Or Bounty Hunter, after defeating a unit marked, more weapon damage. I mostly just go for sprint for bonus movement speed and running stamina cost, as I just don't want to be inconvenienced as I'm flying through the game. For second weapons, you can take the wildfire. That being said, this would only trigger bullseye, whereas the recurve crossbow, if you're hitting a weak spot, you will inflict bullseye, and all weapons have a bonus crit rate of 15% for 10 seconds. That obviously works very well for our corrosion, as we just need to get the most crit rate possible, that we truly get that one up and pumping to points where we always crit, because everything we do is crit. If you don't want to invest in the gas mask hood yet, you could also be using the Mayfly goggles, which just triggers even more power surge, but you'll keenly feel the 35% missing crit rate. It's just something to use for testing purposes if you're simply unsure about this being something good for you or fun for you to play. Now, the most interesting part about attachments is you can actually reduce the spread of the shotgun. Let's remove all of this and shoot at the wall for a bit. That is the spread we're looking at. Quite apart, right? I mean, it's 5 bullets and they're all over the place. Now, we could boost our stability to the max, and that brings us up to 63 stability and only 32 accuracy. If you're shooting, everything kind of seems the same, because stability only takes care of the actual recoil, that the gun just doesn't fly out of your hands. But this is a little bit spread all over the place. If we're now going into the exact different direction and we're just boosting our accuracy like crazy, and in this case, we could even increase the range a little bit, which doesn't really do much. And then on the laser, we can even get more aiming speed. That's quite a good thing as we just want to aim as fast as possible. And if you're shooting now, I think this is quite understandable. The spread is just super nice together with the tactical laser and then the standard shotgun drum mag. And we've been using the tungsten shotgun ammo the whole time. The very fun thing about the corrosion is it's also amazing in PvP, especially due to that power surge effect just being good on any ranges. Obviously, you would rather stand close than far away to just have more hits to be able to trigger power surge more lightly. If you're playing PvP though, instead of Lone Wolf, you would be going for the Stormweaver set or Savior for the bonus activation of your activators. And from a mob perspective, we would then not be running the Flame Resonance. Nah, we'd rather be boosting our HP even more, as you do want to have this value as high as possible to just be able to survive more. And you wouldn't be playing the Pans, the Violent Deadshot, as that doesn't do anything for you. You're not going to be critting over and over again. You'd rather play a second life force boost. And that suddenly gives us another 3,000 more life. And these life force boosts are not even 5 out of 5 upgraded. I can weasel out even more life out of this. Easy peasy, PvP ready. Ladies and gentlemen, do I have you convinced on the corrosion? Is this something you would like to try out? Or are you rather entertained by the idea of using one pistol for both modes, PvE and PvP, to destroy everything? Choose for yourself and tell me in the comments below. Have a fantastic good day.